Aelith didn't know the hooded stranger at the edge of the crowd was the Alpha King. She didn't know he'd been searching for 3 years, chasing whispers and dead ends, looking for someone exactly like her. And she definitely didn't know that the 2 words she was about to scream would shatter the chains she'd worn her entire life. All she knew was that her brother was about to be sold. The auction square in Grimholt reeked of desperation. Torch smoke hung low in the evening air, mixing with the sour stench of unwashed bodies and fear. Aelith stood at the edge of the crowd, her fingers white-knuckled around the rope barrier, watching the platform where her 12-year-old brother stood shivering in the cold. Cale looked so small up there. His wrists were bound with hemp, his bare feet dirty against the wooden planks. He was trying not to cry. She could see it in the way his jaw trembled, the way he kept blinking too fast. He was trying to be brave for her. It broke something inside her chest. "Lot 47!" the auctioneer bellowed, his voice cutting through the murmur of buyers. "Healthy male, young, good for labor, mines, or household service. Starting bid, 300 silver. 300 silver. That was the price of their father's gambling debts. The price of a drunk who died in a tavern brawl and left his children to pay for his sins." A hand went up near the front. Aelith recognized him, Lord Marchell, a man whose servants had a habit of disappearing. Her stomach turned to ice. 300, Marchell called out, his lips curling into something cruel. 350, another voice countered. Cale's eyes found hers across the crowd. "I'm sorry," they seemed to say. "I'm sorry I couldn't run fast enough." They'd tried to flee. 2 nights ago, in the dark, she'd grabbed Cale's hand and they'd run for the eastern border. But the debt collectors had hounds, had trackers, had the law on their side. 400, Marchell said lazily, like he was bidding on cattle. The auctioneer's gavel hovered. 400 silver. Going once. Aelith's body moved before her mind could stop it. She ducked under the rope, shoved through the crowd, and threw herself onto the platform, her knees cracking against the wood. "I'll pay for him." The words tore from her throat, raw and desperate. "Take me instead. I'll work off the debt. However long it takes. Just let him go." Silence crashed over the square. The auctioneer stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. Omegas didn't volunteer. Especially not Omegas like her. Lord Marchell laughed. A wet, ugly sound. "The hollow one? You're offering that as payment?" He turned to the crowd, gesturing at her like she was a joke. "She's wolfless, scentless, worth less than the rags she's wearing." Laughter rippled through the buyers. Aelith felt it like knives against her skin, but she didn't move. She kept her head raised, her arms wrapped around Cale, who had crumpled against her the moment she'd reached him. "Please," she whispered to the auctioneer. "He's just a child." The auctioneer scratched his jaw, considering. "Debt's 400 silver now. You think anyone's going to pay 400 for a hollow Omega?" More laughter, more jeering. Then a voice cut through the noise like a blade through silk. "I'll pay it." The crowd parted. A man stepped forward, tall and broad-shouldered, his face shadowed by a dark hood. His voice was low, rough-edged, the kind that made Aelith think of distant thunder and things that hunted in the night. He moved like he owned the ground beneath his feet. Like the world would rearrange itself to let him pass. When he reached the platform, he didn't climb the stairs. He simply looked up at Aelith, and even through the shadows of his hood, she felt the weight of his gaze like a physical touch. "I'll pay the full debt," he said again, "and she belongs to no one." The square erupted. "Who do you think you are?" Lord Marchell sputtered, his face flushing crimson. "I made a bid. The law says nothing about outbidding." The stranger reached into his coat and withdrew a leather pouch. He tossed it to the auctioneer, who caught it with fumbling hands. 500 silver. That clears the debt with interest. The boy goes free. So does she. The auctioneer opened the pouch, and his eyes went wide. He looked at the stranger, then at the coins, then back again. Whatever he saw made him pale. "See, sold," he stammered, Debt cleared. They're free to go. Marshall surged forward. This is outrageous. I demand to know who— The stranger turned his head slightly, just enough for torchlight to catch the edge of his jaw, the glint of something metallic at his collar. Marshall froze mid-step, his face draining of color. My apologies, Marshall breathed, backing away. I didn't realize. Leave. One word. Marshall fled like the hounds of hell were at his heels. Aelith's pulse kicked hard against her ribs. She pulled Cale closer, shielding him with her body, watching the stranger with wary eyes. People didn't give away 500 silver for nothing. There was always a price. Who are you? She demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. The stranger climbed the platform steps slowly, each footfall deliberate. When he stood before her, he reached up and pushed back his hood. Aelith's lungs seized. He was younger than she'd expected. Mid-20s, perhaps, with a face carved from shadow and firelight, sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and eyes the color of molten amber. Dark hair fell across his forehead, and a thin scar traced from his temple to his cheek, pale against bronze skin. He was beautiful, the way a storm was beautiful. The way a drawn blade was beautiful. Dangerous. My name doesn't matter, he said quietly. What matters is yours. He paused, and something flickered in those wolf-bright eyes. Aelith Vorn, firstborn daughter of Marek and Ilyana Vorn, sister to Cale, 23 years old. His voice dropped lower. Also known as the Hollow One, the Empty, the girl without a wolf. Her blood turned to ice. No one used her real name anymore, not in 5 years. To the people of Grimholt, she was just the Hollow Omega, the cursed girl, the one the goddess forgot to finish. How do you know that? She whispered. Because I've been looking for you. Cale whimpered against her side. Aelith pushed him behind her, putting herself between the boy and the stranger. I don't know what you want, but I won't. I'm not here to hurt you. He said it simply, without defense, and I'm not here to buy you. Then what? His golden gaze held hers, and for a moment, the noise of the dispersing crowd, the crackle of torches, the cold night air, all of it faded. I'm here to offer you a bargain, he said, one that could change both our fates. Aelith laughed. It burst out of her, sharp and brittle, the sound of someone who'd heard too many cruel jokes to believe in kindness anymore. A bargain? She gestured at herself. The threadbare dress, the dirt beneath her fingernails, the hollow emptiness where a wolf should howl. I'm broken. Defective. I can't even shift. Whatever you think you're getting, you're wrong. The stranger didn't flinch, didn't look away. You're not broken, Aelith. You're rare. The words hit her like a slap. She'd been called many things in her life. Cursed, empty, worthless, mistake, but never rare. Never anything that sounded like value. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. He stepped closer, and she caught his scent for the first time. Pine and wood smoke and something darker underneath. Something that made her pulse stutter despite herself. You were born without a wolf. Without a scent. The healers said you were hollow, that the goddess made you incomplete. Her chest constricted. Everyone knows that story. But they don't know why. Aelith stilled. The stranger's voice dropped, meant only for her ears now. You're not empty, Aelith. You're a vessel. The wolf isn't missing, it's dormant, waiting. Your kind appears once in a generation, maybe less. You can carry the memories of the dead, see what others have touched, feel what they've felt. The world tilted. No. She'd never told anyone, never spoken a word about the visions that came when she touched certain objects, the flashes of memory that weren't hers, the voices of the dead that whispered when she held their belongings. She'd thought she was going mad. Her mother had begged her to hide it, to never let anyone see. They'll burn you, Ilyana had wept before the fever took her. They'll call you witch, and burn you like they burned my mother. I don't know what you're talking about, Aelith said, but her words faltered. Yes, you do. His molten stare was too knowing, too certain. You've been hiding it your whole life, pretending the visions aren't real, telling yourself you're imagining things. Stop. Your mother had the gift too. So did your grandmother. It runs in your bloodline, skips generations, manifests only in those born without the wolf. I said stop. Kale tugged at her hand, frightened. Aelith was shaking now, her carefully constructed walls crumbling around her. How? She breathed. How do you know any of this? The stranger reached into his coat and withdrew something small. A ring, simple silver, worn with age, engraved with symbols she didn't recognize. Because your grandmother left this behind when she served my grandfather, he said quietly. And because 3 years ago, someone took my sister. Vanished without a trace. Every tracker, every hound, every seer I've consulted has failed to find her. He pressed the ring into Aelith's palm. The moment metal touched skin, her vision exploded. A girl screaming, iron chains, a stone room with no windows, a man's voice. The king will never find her here. Aelith gasped, dropping the ring, stumbling backward. The stranger caught her elbow, steadying her, his grip firm but gentle. What did you see? His voice was urgent now, raw with something she recognized. Desperation. Hope. Grief. That's exactly why I need you, he said, to find my sister before it's too late. Aelith's mind raced. The vision still burned behind her eyes. Chains, stone walls, a girl's scream echoing in darkness. Your sister, she said slowly, her voice hoarse. She's alive, but she's somewhere cold. Underground, maybe. The stranger's composure cracked. Just for a moment she saw it, the raw hope beneath the iron control, the desperation he'd been carrying for 3 years. You saw her. I saw fragments, a room, chains. Aelith swallowed hard. A man's voice saying you'd never find her. His teeth clenched visibly. Then you understand why I need you. Kale pressed closer to her side, trembling. Aelith looked down at her brother, 12 years old, too thin, too frightened, and then back at the stranger who'd just paid 500 silver for their freedom. What exactly are you proposing? Come with me. 7 days. He held up a hand before she could protest. Your brother comes too. He'll be safe, educated, fed. I swear it on my blood. And me? What happens to me during these 7 days? You use your gift. I have objects. Things my sister touched. Things her captors left behind. You read them. Tell me what you see. Help me piece together where they've taken her. Aelith's laugh was hollow. You make it sound simple. Like I can just turn it on and off. I know it's not simple. I know it costs you. His voice softened unexpectedly. I've studied the vessels for years. I know it drains you. Leaves you weak. Sometimes sick. I won't push you beyond what you can bear. The fact that he knew, that he understood, made something in her chest ache. And after 7 days? You're free. Both of you. I'll give you enough gold to start over anywhere you choose. New names, new papers, a new life far from anyone who ever called you hollow. Freedom. The word tasted foreign on her tongue. She'd never been free. First her father's debts, then the shame of her condition, then the debt collectors. She'd spent her entire life belonging to someone else's cruelty. Why should I trust you? She asked quietly. I don't even know your name. Something flickered in his expression. He reached up and pulled aside his collar, revealing a mark burned into the skin above his collarbone, a crown wrapped in thorns. The royal brand. The mark of the Alpha bloodline. Aelith's knees nearly buckled. My name is Kaelin Vextress, he said, Alpha King of the Northern Realm, and I give you my word, no harm will come to you or your brother under my protection. The Alpha King. She'd heard stories, of course. Everyone had. The young king who'd taken the throne at 22 after his parents were murdered in the same raid that claimed his sister. the one they called the Storm Wolf for his brutal efficiency in hunting down his enemies. They said he was merciless, cold, that he'd executed more traitors in 3 years than his father had in 30. But the man standing before her didn't look merciless. He looked exhausted, haunted, like someone who'd been running on grief and rage for so long he'd forgotten what peace felt like. "I want a blood oath," Aelith heard herself say. "Your word isn't enough." Kaelin's eyebrow rose slightly. "You don't trust easily." "I've learned not to." He drew a blade from his belt, beautiful, deadly, and etched with symbols that matched the ones on the ring. Without hesitation, he sliced his palm. Blood welled dark in the torchlight. Aelith took the knife with trembling fingers and made her own cut. The pain was sharp, clarifying. When she pressed her palm to his, the world ignited. It wasn't just magic sealing an oath. It was something deeper, a recognition that started in her blood and spread through every nerve. Her wolf, the one that had been silent her entire life, suddenly stirred. Not waking, not fully, but acknowledging, like it had been waiting for this exact moment. Kaelin's breath stuttered. His fingers tightened around hers and she saw her own shock reflected in his amber eyes. Mate. The word echoed through her bones, ancient and undeniable. Neither of them spoke. The bond hung between them, electric and terrifying, demanding acknowledgement they weren't ready to give. Finally, Kaelin released her hand. His voice was rougher than before. 7 days, then you choose your own path. He turned and walked toward the edge of the square, then paused without looking back. You have 7 days to decide if you hate me, Aelith. I hope you don't. Dawn painted the sky in shades of blood and gold as they rode north. Aelith sat behind Kaelin on a massive black stallion, Kael tucked safely on a gentler mare led by a warrior named Jorek. The king's captain was a mountain of a man with kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled at Kael's nervous questions. They'd ridden through the night, leaving Grimholt far behind. Aelith watched the landscape change, rolling farmland giving way to dense forest, then rocky terrain that climbed steadily upward. The air grew colder, sharper, carrying the scent of pine and coming snow. She tried not to think about the warmth of Kaelin's back against her chest. Tried not to notice how her body seemed to lean into his without permission, drawn by that impossible bond still humming beneath her skin. Mate. Ridiculous. She was hollow. Broken. Alpha kings didn't mate with cursed girls from auction blocks. By mid-morning, they crested a final ridge, and Aelith's breath stopped. Thornhaven Castle rose from the mountain itself, all dark stone and sharp towers clawing at the sky. It looked like something carved by giants, ancient, imposing, built to withstand sieges and centuries. Waterfalls cascaded down the cliffs on either side, feeding a river that wound through the valley below. Home, Kaelin said quietly. The word felt strange, applied to something so magnificent. They crossed a bridge of black stone spanning a gorge so deep the bottom was lost in mist. Guards in dark leather armor saluted as they passed, their eyes curious but respectful when they glanced at Aelith. Inside the walls, the castle transformed. Where the exterior promised cold brutality, the interior offered unexpected warmth. Tapestries covered stone walls, depicting not battles but forests, hunts, gatherings under moonlight. Fires crackled in every hearth. Servants moved with purpose but without fear, nodding greetings as the king passed. And people smiled at her, not the mocking smiles of Grimholt, not the pitying glances she'd grown to hate. Genuine smiles, curious but welcoming, as if a dirty Omega and her brother were guests rather than oddities. A woman with silver-streaked hair approached, her face kind. Your Majesty, shall I show your guests to their quarters? Please, Marin. See that they have everything they need. Kaelin turned to Aelith. Rest today. We'll begin tomorrow. He walked away before she could respond, his shoulders rigid, putting distance between them like proximity was physically painful. Marin led them through winding corridors to a suite of rooms larger than Aelith's entire childhood home. Kale's eyes went wide at the bed piled with furs, the fire already burning in the hearth. "Is this real?" he whispered. Aelith wished she could answer. Later, after Kale had eaten himself into a food coma and fallen asleep in the enormous bed, Aelith explored. The suite had a balcony overlooking the valley, and she stepped outside to breathe the mountain air. That's when she saw it. Carved into the stone beneath the railing, hidden from casual view but unmistakable once noticed, a symbol. The same symbol from her mother's old journal. The one Ilyana had drawn obsessively in her final days, whispering about danger and betrayal and something coming. The same symbol branded on the arm of the man who'd killed Aelith's grandmother. A chill crawled down her spine. Aelith barely slept. The symbol haunted her, etched in memory now, impossible to forget. Her mother had warned her about that mark. If you ever see it, run. But Ilyana had died before explaining why, and Aelith had spent years trying to forget. Now it was carved into the Alpha King's castle. Was Kaelin connected? Did he know what the symbol meant? Or was the danger lurking somewhere else, hidden among the people who smiled so kindly at her arrival? By morning, she'd decided to say nothing. Not yet. Not until she knew more. Kaelin sent for her after breakfast. Aelith followed a servant through corridors that seemed designed to confuse, finally arriving at a heavy oak door guarded by 2 warriors. Inside, Kaelin stood by a window, backlit by pale winter sun. He'd changed from travel clothes into dark trousers and a fitted shirt that did nothing to hide the breadth of his shoulders. His hair was still damp. Aelith's traitorous heart stuttered. "Stop it." "Did you sleep?" he asked without turning. "Enough." A lie, but he didn't challenge it. Instead, he gestured to a table where several objects lay spread across dark velvet. "These are what I've collected. Things from the raid, from the places we believe they held her." Aelith approached slowly. A torn hair ribbon, deep green, a shard of broken mirror, a child's shoe, scuffed and worn, a button carved from bone, a scrap of parchment with a broken seal. Each item pulsed with residual energy, calling to the gift she'd spent years denying. "The visions aren't pleasant," she warned. "Sometimes I see fragmented images. Sometimes I live through memories that aren't mine. And it leaves me—" She hesitated, weakened. "I know." Kaelin finally turned, and his golden gaze held hers with an intensity that made her pulse race. "If you need to stop, we stop. I won't push you past breaking." The sincerity in his voice was almost worse than cruelty would have been. Cruelty she knew how to handle. Aelith picked up the ribbon first. The vision slammed into her without warning. Running. Bare feet on forest floor, branches tearing at her nightgown. Men laughing behind her, making sport of the chase. She trips, screams, and hands grab her hair, yanking her backward. Aelith gasped, dropping the ribbon. Her knees buckled. Kaelin caught her before she hit the floor, his arms strong and steady around her. "What did you see?" "Forest. Night." Her voice shook. She was running. They were hunting her for sport. A muscle flexed in his jaw, but he said nothing. Just helped her to a chair, pressed a cup of water into her hands, and waited. When her breathing steadied, she reached for the mirror shard. Cold. So cold. Stone walls weeping moisture. She traces a finger through the grime, drawing shapes to pass the time. A door opens. Lord Varric wants her moved. A woman's voice, cultured but cruel. "The king's getting too close." "Lord Varric." Aelith surfaced from the vision, her tongue thick. She was moved on his orders. The king was getting too close, so they relocated her. Kaelin went very still. "You're certain of that name?" "I heard it clearly. Lord Varric." Something dark passed across his face. "Varric is my uncle, my father's younger brother. He's been my closest advisor since I took the throne." The words hung in the air like poison. Aelith reached for the bone button next, needing to know more. A study lined with books, Maps spread across a desk. Lord Varek. She recognized him from the servants' whispers, silver-haired, dignified, speaking to a man in a traveling cloak. The girl is insurance. As long as we have her, Kaelin stays distracted. The man frowns. And when he stops searching? Varek's smile is cold. Then we produce her ourselves. Play the hero. Marry her to my son. Bind our bloodline to the throne permanently. Before we continue, please take 2 seconds to like this video. Aelith dropped the button like it burned. Her stomach heaved. Aelith. Kaelin was beside her instantly, his hand cupping her elbow. Talk to me. Your uncle. The words scraped her throat. He orchestrated everything, the raid, your sister's capture. He's been hiding her for 3 years, waiting for the right moment to... She couldn't finish. Kaelin's expression shuddered into something terrible. A cold, calculating fury that reminded her why they called him the Stormwolf. To what? To produce her himself. Claim he rescued her. Marry her to his son and control the throne through blood right. The silence that followed was absolute. Aelith watched Kaelin process the betrayal. His uncle, his father's brother, the man who'd held him at his parents' funeral and sworn to guide him. The man who'd sat at his council table for 3 years, offering advice, shaping policy, playing the loyal advisor while his sister rotted in captivity. Where? Kaelin's voice was barely human. Where is she now? Aelith reached for the parchment, her hands trembling. One more vision. She could do one more. A manor house surrounded by snow-covered gardens, mountain peaks in the distance. A girl, older now, thin but alive, staring out a barred window. A servant brings food. Lord Varek says you'll be moved soon, somewhere warmer. The girl doesn't respond. Her eyes are fixed on the horizon, watching, waiting, still believing. Eastern mountains, Aelith breathed. A manor house. She's alive, Kaelin. She's alive, and she's waiting for you. The hope that broke across his face nearly shattered her. Then his walls slammed back down. Varek arrives tomorrow for the council meeting, he said quietly. He doesn't know we suspect him. Aelith understood immediately. He's walking right into your hands. Yes. Kaelin's smile was sharp as a blade. And he's going to tell me exactly where my sister is. One way or another. That evening, Aelith found herself unable to rest. The visions clung to her like cobwebs. Lysara's frightened eyes, Varek's cold smile, the weight of secrets she now carried. She wandered the castle corridors until she found herself on a balcony overlooking the moonlit valley. She wasn't surprised when Kaelin appeared beside her. You should be sleeping, he said quietly. So should you. They stood in silence, watching clouds drift across the stars. The bond hummed between them, persistent, impossible to ignore. I owe you an apology, Kaelin said finally. Aelith turned to look at him. For what? For dragging you into this. For asking you to carry my pain. He gripped the stone railing, knuckles white. I've spent 3 years obsessing over finding Lysara. I told myself the ends justified any means. But watching you today, seeing what the visions cost you... He trailed off, his jaw tight. You didn't drag me, Aelith said. I chose this. Did you? His laugh was bitter. I bought you at an auction, Aelith. Paid off your debt so you'd feel obligated. That's not choice. That's coercion with better manners. The honesty startled her. She'd expected justifications, not confession. You also freed my brother, she said slowly. Gave us rooms instead of cells. Asked instead of ordered. She paused. You could have forced me to use my gift. Could have threatened Kael to ensure my cooperation. You didn't. I would never... I know. The words surprised her, but they were true. I know you wouldn't. Kaelin turned to face her fully, and the moonlight caught the exhaustion in his features, the grief he carried like armor. My parents died protecting Lysara, he said quietly. The raiders came for her specifically. My father fought them at the nursery door. My mother threw herself over Lysara's bed. His words caught in his throat. They found my parents' bodies, but Lysara was gone, vanished, and I've spent every day since wondering if I could have saved them. If I'd been faster, stronger. You were 22. Old enough to fight, old enough to die with them. His eyes met hers, and she saw the boy beneath the king, broken, guilty, and still bleeding from wounds that refused to heal. Instead, I survived. And I've been trying to earn that survival ever since. Aelith's chest ached. She knew that weight. The suffocating guilt of living when others didn't. My mother died when I was 15, she heard herself say. Fever took her, but she held on for weeks. Kept whispering warnings about the gift, about enemies who'd come for me if I ever revealed what I could do. Her voice thickened. I watched her die slowly, and I couldn't do anything. Couldn't save her. Could only hold her hand and promise to stay hidden. You've been hiding ever since. It was easier than being hunted. Kaelin stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him, smell pine and wood smoke, and something uniquely his. You're not hiding anymore, he said softly. You stood on that auction block and offered your life for your brothers. You faced visions that could have broken you. You're the bravest person I've ever met, Aelith. I'm terrified, she whispered. Of what? Of this. She gestured between them. Of you. Of what happens when the 7 days end and I have to choose. His hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek, featherlight. I meant what I said. You choose your own path. The bond doesn't chain you to me. What if I don't want to leave? The words escaped before she could stop them. Kaelin's breath hitched. His thumb traced her cheekbone, and she watched something like wonder bloom across his face. Then I would spend every day proving you made the right choice, he said roughly. Not because you're a vessel, not because of what you can do, but because you're you. Because you're fierce and kind, and you make me remember what hope feels like. Aelith rose on her toes and kissed him. He went rigid with surprise. Then his arms wrapped around her, pulling her close, and he kissed her back like she was air and he'd been drowning for years. It was desperate and tender all at once. His hands trembled against her back, her fingers tangled in his hair. The bond sang between them, bright and undeniable. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kaelin pressed his forehead to hers. Ask me again, Aelith whispered. After we find Lysara. After Varric is dealt with. Ask me to stay, and I'll give you my answer. I can live with that. His voice was rough. I can live with hope. He walked her back to her chambers, their fingers intertwined. At her door, he kissed her once more. Slow, deep, full of promise. Then he left, and Aelith leaned against the closed door, touching her lips, wondering when she'd stopped running and started wanting to stay. Everything shattered the next morning. Aelith woke to screaming. She bolted upright, heart racing, and found Marin bursting through her door, face pale with terror. The boy, Marin gasped. Your brother. He's gone. The world stopped. Aelith tore through the castle, Kaelin beside her, guards fanning out in every direction. Kael's room showed signs of struggle. Overturned chair, scattered furs, a window left open to the bitter mountain wind. And on the pillow, a note. The vessel comes alone to the eastern ridge by nightfall, or the boy dies. Tell the king, and I'll send him back in pieces. No signature, no seal. But Aelith recognized the symbol drawn at the bottom, the same symbol carved into the balcony, the same one from her mother's journal. Varric, Kaelin snarled, crushing the note in his fist. He knows. Somehow he knows we've discovered him. How? Aelith's voice cracked. We told no one. Spies. There are always spies. Kaelin paced like a caged wolf, fury radiating from every line of his body. He's been embedded in this castle for years. He has eyes everywhere. Aelith stared at the open window, her mind racing. Kael, her baby brother, the only family she had left. I have to go. Absolutely not. He'll kill him, Kaelin. And he'll kill you too. Kaelin gripped her shoulders, his eyes blazing. This is a trap. Varric wants you isolated, vulnerable. The moment you're alone, he'll take you both. Then what do you suggest? Wait here while my brother... Her voice broke. Kaelin's expression crumpled. He pulled her against his chest, holding her tight while she shook. We don't wait, he said against her hair. We move first. Varric thinks he's controlling the board, but he doesn't know we already have his location. Aelith pulled back, searching his face. Lysara's manor. He'll have taken Kael there. It's his stronghold, his insurance. He's consolidating his leverage. Kaelin's jaw flexed. He wants you to come alone because he's afraid of what happens if you don't. So we give him what he wants. Aelith, listen to me. She gripped his arms, defiant despite her terror. I go to the ridge. Let him see me alone. While he's focused on capturing me, your warriors hit the manor and extract both Lysara and Kael. If something goes wrong, then you save them anyway. Her voice hardened. Promise me, whatever happens to me, you save my brother. Nothing will happen to you. Kaelin's hands framed her face, his eyes burning. Because I'm not letting you out of my sight. We do this together, or not at all. He said to come alone. He said to tell the king. A dangerous smile crossed Kaelin's face. He didn't say anything about the king following. The plan crystallized quickly. Aelith would approach the ridge visibly, drawing Varric's attention. Kaelin and his warriors would use the mountain paths to circle behind. Jorek would lead a second force to the manor. 2 targets. 1 chance. As the sun began its descent, Aelith strapped a knife to her thigh. A gift from Kaelon, the blade etched with protective symbols. If he touches you, Kaelin said quietly, I will tear him apart with my bare hands. Save that energy for finding your sister. He kissed her hard, desperate, like he was memorizing her. Come back to me, he breathed. I intend to. The eastern ridge was a blade of stone cutting against the darkening sky. Aelith climbed alone, her breath fogging in the cold air, every nerve screaming at her to run. The wind bit through her cloak, carrying the scent of snow and something else, something rotten beneath the surface. She felt Kaelin's presence somewhere in the shadows behind her. The bond pulsed steady, reassuring. I'm here. I'm close. The ridge opened onto a flat expanse where Varric waited. He looked exactly as the vision had shown. Silver-haired, dignified, wearing authority like a second skin. 2 guards flanked him. A third held Kael, knife pressed to the boy's throat. Kael! Aelith lunged forward, but one of the guards blocked her path. Ah! The vessel. Varric's smile was polished, cold. How delightful to finally meet you. I've been watching your bloodline for decades, you know. Your grandmother was uncooperative. Your mother fled before I could collect her. But you. His eyes gleamed. You walked right into my hands. Let my brother go. In time. First, we need to discuss your future. Varric stepped closer, examining her like livestock. You're going to help me find certain things. Read certain objects. There are secrets buried in this kingdom that even the king doesn't know. Treasures, weapons, leverage enough to reshape the realm. I'll die before I help you. No, you won't. Because if you do, the boy dies. And then, my men visit the castle and collect everyone you've grown fond of. Varric's smile sharpened. I've been playing this game since before you were born, girl. Did you really think I wouldn't have contingencies? Aelith's blood rushed in her ears. She needed to stall, needed to give Kaelin time. Your nephew trusted you, she said. He looked up to you. My nephew is a naive child playing at being king. Varric's voice dripped contempt. His father was weak. His mother was weaker. And Kaelin? He laughed. So desperate to find his precious sister that he never stopped to look at who was standing beside him. You're wrong about him. Am I? He's standing right behind you. Varric spun. Too late. Kaelin emerged from the shadows like a storm made flesh, warriors materializing from every direction. Steel sang in the darkness. Varek's guards fell before they could raise their weapons, but the man holding Kale pressed the knife harder, drawing blood. "One more step," he snarled, "and the boy." An arrow whistled through the air and took him through the eye. Jorek stepped from the tree line, bow still raised and face grim. Kale collapsed into Aelith's arms, sobbing. Varek stood alone now, surrounded by wolves. "It's over, Uncle." Kaelin's voice carried no emotion, no mercy. "Tell me where Lysara is, and your death will be quick." Varek laughed, a brittle, desperate sound. "You think this ends with me? I have allies, contingencies. Even now, my men are moving your sister somewhere. You'll never." "No, they're not." A new voice rang across the ridge. Everyone turned. A young woman stood at the edge of the clearing, flanked by Jorek's warriors. She was thin, pale, wrapped in a borrowed cloak far too large for her frame. But her eyes, amber, like Kaelin's, burned with fierce triumph. "Lysara." Kaelin's voice broke. "Hello, brother." Her smile was sharp as a blade. "Sorry I'm late. Had to deal with some guards first." Aelith watched understanding dawn across Varek's face. Then horror. "That's impossible," he breathed. "You were secured, chained." "I've been chained for 3 years." Lysara walked forward, each step deliberate. 3 years of watching, listening, learning. "I know the name of every guard you assign to me. Know their routines, their weaknesses, their fears." Her voice hardened. "I know which servants could be bribed, which walls were weakest, which nights the patrols were thin." She stopped directly in front of Varek. "You kept me alive because you needed leverage, but you made a mistake." Her smile was terrible. "You underestimated how much I am my brother's sister. You couldn't have escaped alone." "I didn't." Lysara glanced at Jorek. "Your men reached the manor an hour ago. My guards were already unconscious. Turns out 3 years is enough time to make friends with the right servants." She'd been preparing, waiting, not helplessly enduring, but building toward her own liberation. Aelith felt tears burning her eyes. "You were never broken," she whispered. Lysara looked at her, really looked, and something passed between them. Recognition. Understanding. "Neither were you, Vessel." Kaelin moved then, crossing the space between them in 3 strides, pulling his sister into his arms. He held her like she might disappear, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "I'm sorry," he choked. "I'm so sorry it took so long." "You came." Lysara's voice broke on the words. "That's all that matters. You never stopped looking." They clung to each other in the moonlight, 2 siblings reunited after 3 years of hell. Aelith watched with Kale pressed against her side, her heart full to bursting. Then Varek moved. He lunged for Lysara with a hidden blade, his face twisted with rage. Aelith didn't think. She threw herself forward, her own knife flashing. Steel met steel. Varek's blade skidded aside. Aelith drove her knife into his shoulder, dropping him to his knees. Kaelin was there instantly, boot on Varek's chest, sword at his throat. "You dare." The words were barely human. "You dare touch what's mine." The torchlight caught the signet ring on Varek's finger, etched with the same symbol that had haunted Aelith's nightmares. The same mark branded on the man who'd killed her grandmother. "Your grandmother refused to serve me willingly," Varek spat, following her gaze. "She paid for that defiance. I won't make the same mistake with you." "You won't get the chance," Aelith said quietly. Varek looked up at his nephew, at the death in those amber eyes, and finally showed fear. "Mercy," he gasped. "Please, I'm your blood." "You stopped being my blood the moment you took my sister." The sword fell. Aelith turned Kale's face away. Some things children shouldn't see. The journey back to Thornhaven took 2 days. They traveled slowly, carefully, giving Lysara time to adjust to freedom. She rode beside Kaelin, the siblings rarely more than arm's length apart, making up for 3 years of separation with quiet conversations and shared silences. Kale rode with Jorek, peppering the captain with questions about swords and horses and warriors. The shadow of captivity was already fading from his face, replaced by the boundless curiosity of childhood. And Aelith rode at the back, watching her strange new family knit themselves together, wondering where she fit in the tapestry. On the second night, camped beside a frozen stream, Kaelin found her sitting apart from the others. "You're thinking too loud," he said, settling beside her. "I can practically hear it." "The 7 days are over." He went still. "I know. The debt is paid. Lysara is safe. You don't need me anymore." "Is that what you think?" Kaelin turned to face her, his expression raw. "That I only wanted you for your gift? It's what makes sense. You're a king. I'm a hollow omega from an auction block. This," she gestured between them, "isn't logical." "Since when does love follow logic?" The word hit her like lightning. "Love? I love you, Aelith." He said it simply, without drama, like stating an obvious truth. "I think I started falling the moment you threw yourself on that platform for your brother. A woman with nothing, risking everything for someone else." His hand found hers. "You're extraordinary. You've always been extraordinary. The world just couldn't see it." Her vision blurred with tears. "I don't know how to be a queen." "Neither do I. I barely know how to be a king." His smile was crooked, vulnerable. "But I'd rather figure it out together than spend the rest of my life wondering what we could have been. Lysara needs you. Your kingdom needs you. I'd just be my partner, my equal, the person I want beside me through everything." He squeezed her hand. "Lysara already adores you. She told me you're the first person who looked at her like a survivor instead of a victim." Aelith thought about running. It was what she knew, what she was good at. But she was so tired of running. "I'm still afraid," she admitted. "So am I." Kaelin lifted her hand and pressed his lips to her knuckles. "We'll be afraid together." Aelith looked at him. This fierce, broken, beautiful man who'd seen her at her lowest and called her extraordinary, who'd freed her brother without condition, who kissed her like she was precious and looked at her like she hung the stars. "Yes," she said. His breath caught. "Yes? Ask me properly." Hope blazed across his face. He shifted to one knee, still holding her hand, and the firelight caught the amber of his eyes. "Aelith Vorn, will you stay? Not for 7 days, not for duty, but for always. Will you be my mate, my partner, my queen?" "Yes." The word came easier this time. To all of it. Yes. He surged up and kissed her, joy breaking across his features like sunrise after endless night. They were both laughing and crying, holding each other in the cold mountain air. From across the camp, Lysara's voice drifted over. "Finally. I was worried I'd have to intervene." Kael's response was immediate. "Does this mean I get to live in a castle forever?" "Yes," Kaelin called back, still holding Aelith. "It means exactly that." Aelith buried her face in his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady against her cheek, feeling the bond between them settle into something permanent and sure. She'd walked onto that auction block expecting to lose everything. Instead, she'd found home. The bonding ceremony was held under the winter moon, with the entire kingdom gathered to witness. Aelith wore deep blue velvet embroidered with silver stars. Lysara had helped choose the gown, insisting her future sister deserved something extraordinary. Kael stood beside them, scrubbed clean and beaming, appointed official ring-bearer with tremendous solemnity. When Aelith walked through the great hall toward Caelan, the crowd parted like water. She saw faces that had once looked at her with pity or contempt. Nobles, warriors, servants, now bowing in respect. The hollow one, the empty. The girl the goddess forgot to finish. Now walking toward a throne. Kaelin waited at the altar, dressed in formal black, his wolf-bright eyes never leaving her face. When she reached him, he took her hands, and she felt the bond pulse between them, no longer frightening, but familiar. Cherished. "I, Kaelin Vextress, Alpha King of the Northern Realm, choose you," he said. his voice carrying through the silent hall. Not for duty, not for power, but because you saw me when I was broken and didn't look away. Because you fought for your brother when you had nothing left. Because you taught me that strength isn't about what you can take, it's about what you're willing to give. Aelith's heart swelled with emotion. I, Aelith Vorn, choose you, she answered. Not for safety, not for escape, but because you saw me when I was hollow and called me rare, because you freed me without condition, because you showed me that home isn't a place, it's a person. The ceremonial knife passed between them, 2 shallow cuts, 2 palms pressed together, blood and magic sealing what words had promised. The bond snapped fully into place, not a chain, never a chain, a bridge. The hall erupted in cheers. Later, much later, they escaped to their chambers. The celebrations continued below, but they'd earned this. A few hours of quiet, of just being together. Kaelin traced lazy patterns on her shoulder as they lay tangled in furs, moonlight silvering the room. Tell me something, he murmured. Something I don't know. Aelith smiled against his chest. I almost ran. That first night in the castle, when I saw the symbol on the balcony, I almost grabbed Kael and disappeared. What stopped you? You. She lifted her head to meet his eyes. I watched you with your warriors, with your servants. The way they followed you not from fear, but from love. I thought, maybe power doesn't have to mean cruelty. Maybe strength can be gentle. His arms tightened around her. I'm glad you stayed. So am I. Silence settled between them, comfortable and warm. Your turn, Aelith said. Tell me something I don't know. Kaelin was quiet for a moment. I went to 7 auctions before yours, searching for you, following rumors about a hollow Omega with a gift. 7 times wrong girl. I was starting to lose hope. What made you keep looking? Your grandmother's ring. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Every time I touched it, I felt her certainty that her bloodline would produce someone extraordinary, someone worth waiting for. His voice dropped. She was right. Aelith felt tears slip down her cheeks. Not sadness, but fullness, gratitude, joy. She thought about the woman she'd been, standing on that auction block, offering her life for her brother's freedom. That woman couldn't have imagined this, couldn't have believed it was possible. But it was. All of it. She'd offered to pay for Kael with her servitude. Instead, the Alpha King had paid for them both with mercy. She'd expected chains. He'd given her wings. I'll pay for him. She'd sobbed that night, expecting nothing. And what the Alpha King did next had silenced more than the pack. It had silenced every voice that had ever called her hollow, because she wasn't empty anymore. She was home. Where are you listening from? Drop a comment below. I love hearing from you. And if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe. It's free, and it helps more people discover these tales.